friend of mine told me that all the best TED and TEDx talks begin with the words how to. How to learn a language in 6 months, how to spot a liar. I hope you're not using that right now. So I decided to teach you guys a skill. So my talk is called How to TEDx. Calcutta, Busan, Vilnius, Istanbul, Thessaloniki, Montreal, Owari. What do all these places have in common? If you're thinking that it's that I suck at pronouncing them, you're right, but there's a hint in the bottom right-hand corner. The other thing they all have in common is that they are all playing host to TEDx events today. And that's not even all of them. According to TED.com, there are 27 concurrent TEDx events happening today alone. According to my own research, however, this specific one has the most attractive and most intelligent audience. 15,679. As my attractive, intelligent audience, I know what every one of you is thinking. Henrik, that's a prime number. And you're right, A+, top marks. They don't really use the A+ system at university anymore, but you get it anyways. The other thing that is, though, is that is the sum total amount of TEDx events that have happened to this day. And that's a crazy amount when you compare it to how many TED and TED Global events, which, going back to 1984, there have been fewer than 100 of. But the point I want to make is that we really shouldn't compare them. They're actually incredibly different, and you should approach them differently. You can't compare your TED apples to your TEDx oranges. Most of us will only interact with TED by way of watching the videos online. You know, we see awesome speakers like Elon Musk through the power of the internet getting to share their ideas. But, spoiler alert, I'm not Elon Musk. The wonderful thing about the TED apple is that it has that global reach. But the wonderful thing about the TEDx orange is the local impact and the local dialogue. The wonderful thing about TED is that it can attract these world-level experts. And the wonderful thing about TEDx is it catches a wider swath of voices. And with TED, because they're so easily accessible online, we always end up in this mindset of passive audience, expert speaker. And you don't want to be doing the same with TEDx, or you're going to miss the point. With TED, you just bite into that TED apple. But I don't know if you've ever tried biting directly into an orange. It's not wonderful. Most of you learned at a pretty young age that you have to peel that orange. And I want to teach you how to TEDx and how to peel that orange rather than just biting in. And I'm going to do this with a story that starts at home at my computer. This is me sitting at my multi-monitor setup. Some of you might be thinking it's a screen grab from The Matrix. I really can't get anything by you, but it's pretty similar. About a year ago, I was doing an online course from UC San Diego entitled Learning How to Learn. A really great course, by the way. It's a 4-week course, and about 2 weeks into it, my girlfriend comes up to me and she points out to me that between the one monitor on which I have this lecture series going and the other monitor on which I'm playing the video game Civilization V, I'm really not paying attention to either of them. And that's not a shock to me. I'd done about 4 online courses in this exact same fashion, lived a lot of my life in this fashion. But something about the irony of having my utterly crappy learning strategy pointed out to me while I was doing a course entitled Learning How to Learn really made me actually take a step back and think about what was going wrong. And superficially, it's pretty obvious. I wasn't paying attention, so I wasn't learning. But when I looked at it more deeply, it came down to 2 things for me, 2 major problems. The first problem was my motive. I'd gone into the course with a pretty crappy motive. I thought to myself, it's in my wheelhouse, educational psychology, and I know a lot of that stuff already, so it's going to be easy. But that pronoun there, it, is really telling, because the it doesn't stand for learning new skills or engaging with new ideas. The it really stands for the completion of the course. The completion of the course is going to be easy because I know a lot of it already. But what is the point of completing a course? Am I doing it so I can put it on my CV or so I can tell people about it and they can think that it's cool, that I'm the kind of person that learns stuff. If that's my only motive, that's not good. That's not enough. And the same will apply to TEDx. If instead I got all the learning but couldn't get any of the social reward, couldn't get a certificate, couldn't tell people about it, couldn't put it on my CV, if in that case I would still be there, then I would have had the right motive, and I didn't at the start. And the other major problem was a problem of humility. I wasn't humble enough to learn. I was in two mindsets. One which was, this is my wheelhouse. I did educational psychology as well, where I'd put myself on a bit of a pedestal and viewed myself as kind of an equal to a lecturer, which may be fine, but combined with the fact that I was in this very traditional learning mindset that sees learning as something that experts hand down to non-experts, I really wasn't opening myself up to actually learning from the lecture series. I've had the privilege of, in my life, encountering a lot of great lifelong learners. And one thing that they all share is that they're open to learning from lots of different sources. They would probably acknowledge, too, that most of learning might be experts handing down to non-experts, but you also have students that sometimes will teach the expert they're interacting with. We all learn from our colleagues. Sometimes kids learn from adults, and individuals learn from introspection. But if you're not open to this kind of learning, if you're not humble, then that stuff will just pass you by. So I made some changes. I decided next time I was going to sit down at this lecture series, I'd focus 100%. I would cut out all the distractions, and I would try and pay the best attention I could. And even when I was covering something I already knew about, I would just pay attention even more. And I'd question my own learning. I'd try and get every little ounce of nuance I could out of it. And that was just kind of an experiment in my head. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this for a week. And the first thing that happened wasn't that I got any better learning out of it. The first thing that happened actually was I started to enjoy it. The course was actually genuinely enjoyable. And then the learning followed, and then I started using the techniques in my own life. And at the end, I learned way more from that online lecture series than I ever thought I could have at the outset. And it's the only online lecture series I've ever recommended to a friend. And I don't think that's because I haven't done any good ones. I probably have. I just don't even know it, because I let them pass me by. I didn't engage with them at all in any meaningful way. And I'm applying that same thought process to TEDx and to peeling my TEDx orange today. And the way I want to do that is I want to leave you with 3 guidelines that I think you should keep in mind in order to TEDx the right way. The first is this: have the right motive. Ask yourself, why are you here today? If you're here because you think, TED is cool and I'm going to take this selfie and put it on Instagram so my friends know how cool I am and I do intellectual stuff, that's not the right motive. If you weren't allowed to tell anyone you're here and you got 0 social reward out of it, all you got was the learning, the engaging with the people around you and with the local community and people who act in that local community, if you would still be here, if that was all you could take away, then you have the right motive. And that's a big part of the battle. The second guideline I would give to you is this: discuss the content. You need to throw away that mindset that says that you are a passive audience listening to a bunch of expert speakers, because TEDx is way more than that. The beauty of TEDx is that you're here in person. The beauty of TEDx is that you can talk to the strangers around you about the ideas that are being thrown out there, and you can talk to the speakers even. As long as you don't do it while they're on stage, you can talk to the speakers. And I specifically here say discuss the content, because I don't know if any of you have done this, but I found myself way too often at these kind of multi-speaker events where I'll come into a conversation in the break, and all I'll really be able to say is, I liked this talk, but I didn't really like this talk. And to me, that's the most superficial possible engagement with the content. If anything, what you're doing is you're not engaging with the content at all. And that's not good enough. Whenever I find myself doing that, I realize I've done myself a disservice. And the last bit of advice I would give you is this: be humble. Learning really can and will come from all kinds of people and all kinds of places. But if you're not open to it, and if you're not humble, it'll pass you by, and you'll never know that it was there. In the end, humility, I think, is the surest sign of not only intellectual, but of emotional intelligence. And that is how to TEDx the right way. I want to thank you all for listening, and I hope you all enjoy peeling your TEDx oranges. Thank you.